and lost again. As soon as we find it again, then we need to have everybody look over it because it's going to be. Who was Karen? Were you in charge of that? Who's got the lost and found? Sunshine. What's going to happen to anything that's not claimed today? Is this the last chance?
This is the last chance.
So at some point, how can we do this? How do we say we make a pile and for the first half an hour it's lost and found and then it becomes burner yard sale for the yard spots?
Fundraiser.
Yeah, fire safety obviously is being delayed. I think it's been, you've got it till 5:15. We're cleared on that. So we're going to have fire safety starting in this room at 5:15. So we have to be finished unless you want to start the class, like it or not, by 5:15, and it's about 4 o'clock now. So with that, Rebecca's going to start the ELT on Alchemy, and then right after that, we'll pretty much roll straight into the board of directors without a smoke break. Oh, we're going to do decount real quick. Yeah, I guess that's true. Do a quick decount. And then we'll roll straight into it. I don't think we're going to have time for any more smoke breaks until 5:15. All right?
Hey, I'm Rebecca. I'm one of, I guess, 4, that's what we're counting if it reads. It was me, Age, Tuna, and Jessica Seals. And I'm going to try my very best not to bore you to death with all the intricate details of what we do behind the scenes for Alchemy. I'll try to keep it things that are pertinent. First of all, I guess I'll start with financials because they're right here next to me. Everything that we did is in my little green book. I'm going to keep this here until I leave. I'll be here for part of decompression. I don't make any promises for how long. I've got an overview that I want to read to you. And so this is basically the Alchemy numbers for the year. So our original budget that the board passed, we asked for $102,462 for operating costs. And what that is that's all of our team requests, it's everything that we needed to purchase, all APW purchases, and land use, and insurance, and all of that stuff, all rolled into one single number. We also have a bunch of more numbers that are probably not that interesting to you right now, such as what our bait fees are, and we also set aside 20% of overall gross ticket sales this year to put toward AAA and community outreach programs after the fact. That was around $30,000 we set aside off the top before we created our budget. And so everything that we did, we kept underneath that number. We also set aside around 10% from gross ticket sales to make sure if we screwed up, and because it was my first time leading a big event, and so it was kind of a new thing for us. We set aside enough money so if we really screwed up the budget, then we still didn't end up in the red. So we set aside $102,000, give or take, from the board. We actually spent only $91,000 of that. So what we have in the bank right now is around $51,000 that we did not end up spending for Alchemy that we can roll into the community, however, whoever's in charge sees fit. I will have in my event report, or our event report, which should be released sometime this week. The event report part is mostly done. The financials are done now, so that should be rolled out to you guys sometime this week so you can see everything that's in this book, which is all of our receipts, all of the checking accounts, all the receipts, how they relate to every line item that's on the checking account. It's very boring, it's very tedious, but it's there in case you care. It's all there. So anyway, so yay for us, it was, we had a very profitable year. And so, I know before we were talking about euphoria and being right on the line for meeting our budget, Alchemy has way more money than we actually spent on the event, and that was with us being extravagant. We went way out of our way to try to give every team lead pretty much everything that they asked for within reason. I would make a recommendation next year that we actually scale back our spending a little bit and maybe try to focus more on community-oriented events, but we'll see about that later. Some of the new things for Alchemy this year, we switched, just like Euphoria, to an event lead team setup rather than one event lead. That worked out pretty well. We did actually divide up a lot of the work. Under each of the event leads, we divided up the teams. So not everybody was dealing with, say, APW or fire safety. We all had different teams that we were handling. And that worked out pretty well because there's a lot of stuff that goes into Alchemy. We've switched almost into a year-round format because it's just so big that our team leads really need as much time as they can to build their teams, to find volunteers, and to do a lot of stuff off-site to bring onto the site when the gates actually open. I really want to thank all of the team leads this year because they were amazing. For the first time, we got all of our budgets in on time so that we were able to submit our budgets to the board of directors on time for the first time ever. This is amazing. I also want to talk for a second about the team leads and how well they did with their volunteers. Thank you also to the community for stepping up and trying to find volunteers for Alchemy, because since it's such a huge firm, we have a lot of need for hands. And we, because of the community and because of the team's hard work and the awesome volunteer system that Patrick created this year, which we should have talked about for Euphoria as well, because it was for the whole year, we really had a lot more volunteers that were present. We will always need more volunteers, you guys, especially with Rangers. That's something that we as a community, and not as an event league team and not as an event, but as a community have to continue building. It's very, very, very important, but we're doing a lot better than we did in 2011. And so I applaud all of you for that as well. Very good.
Everybody.
There were a couple of other things that we did that were new for this year. Tarek mentioned very briefly about SOPs. That started as a project for Euphoria, but was primarily for Alchemy's uses. One of the things that was not so good for 2011 was our emergency response. Alchemy is huge. We have to be ready in case there's an emergency. It's absolutely imperative for all your safety, for all our safety, for the liability of the events. Because if we get sued, then it could be a problem. So we need to be ready when things happen. So one of the things that we really heavily focused on this year, thank you, Mel, is getting together standard operating procedures for all of our emergency services. We took fire safety to a 24-hour team, which we may have to do a little work on next year because we worked them to death. We have paid paramedics, we have all kinds of new things that we did this year, but we documented it all, and we started doing immense amounts of training. We had a lot of off-site trainings. We had meetings that were just for emergency services personnel, and all of it showed. I know you know all about the incidents that happened at Alchemy, and unfortunately there were several, but we responded to those exactly by our SOPs, and it was great. I have to applaud all of our emergency services personnel because they did a fantastic job. And so that's something we did better. Art for this year was way better. One of the focuses that we had was trying to get more art there. Like Trevor and Chu were talking about, the art fundraiser was a bigger success than it's been in the past, and you can see it. You can see that we had a lot more art, both funded by the art fundraiser and by just community participation of art. One of the major changes was that we switched back to a placement system, which we hadn't done since year 2, and that was awesome. The placement system solved a lot of our problems. One of our continued issues in the community is sound complaints. It's something that if we are not very careful, will get the event shut down forever. And so we had a huge group of people. We had our placement team, we had Mel working as a liaison, we worked really close with the county, we went up there and actually talked to people before the event, and we're trying to be good neighbors, and it's really starting to show. We will always have sound complaints at Cherokee Farms. This is something that will always be an issue, and it's something that we're continuing to battle. We're doing a pretty good job of it, but you guys need to be aware that there may come a time that we have to move Alchemy because it's just too much for that county. But it's not now, and we'll see what happens in the future. But for now, the sound complaint thing, we handled it really, really well this year for the first time ever. Go ahead.
What were the sound complaints this year?
That were loud. The sound complaints always are that the way that the land is situated, you can stand at Alchemy's gate or even at the road and hear nothing, but if you drive up on top of a ridge, you can hear people talking on Effigy Hill. If you go on the main street in Lafayette, then you can actually hear music so loud that the windows are shaking. And so one of the things that we run into is the bass carries in strange ways, and it's almost completely unpredictable. We've sort of begun to figure out how to point things and how to stack things, and our placement team did immense amounts of work to try to work with all of the sound camps to help with that, and it was better, but it's always going to be a problem. It just is. So I hope that answers your question. It's just our sound carries.
So was there sound complaints throughout the event?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Starting from Wednesday night.
And how do the authorities react to that? Like, do they come and petition?
They show up and they tell us they're going to give us tickets, and then they threaten to arrest Mel. What happens when we get a sound complaint, you guys, is Mel is our liaison with the cops because she's been working with the local authorities now for, what, 3 years? Give or take. And so they know her. They know her very well. She's established a relationship with them that's very good. And so they come to her and they say, hey, we've got this problem. We've got certain neighbors that are complaining. What can we do about this? And generally what happens is Mel ends up having to get in a cop car, and they take her to strange places around the county, and they make her listen. And she'll get on the phone with us, and in a very calm but somewhat subdued panic, talk with us as the two of us actually handled it this year. H handled it the first time, and I handled it the next night. But what we do is then we have a cell phone on one ear and a radio, an Alchemy radio on the other hand, and we listen to Mel, and she says, "This is what I'm hearing," and we go neighborhood by neighborhood. we go neighborhood by neighborhood, and we use the rangers to spread out, so we have one ranger per neighborhood, and that ranger will go through. We'll say, "Okay, we're working on this neighborhood," and the ranger will go to each sound camp, and Mel will listen and see if it makes a difference. And so that way we can pinpoint that who on that particular night is causing the problem, and then we just ask that camp to turn down or turn off based on whatever's happening.
And as long as you're proactive about it, the authority seems to be.
Yep, because there always comes a time, because they see that we're not actually trying to be a problem. They see that we're working super hard to address their concerns. We do it in a very expedient manner. We've got a very good system that we actually sort of developed on the fly this year, but we will use forever now, that helped us get through it really super quickly. And as long as they see that we're working on it, then they feel satisfied. You have something to add?
To go to your question, just want to add something real quick. We had 3,500 people essentially on the property this year, and we had sound problems every night, and we went through the process you just outlined every night. The event that was after us at Cherokee Farms had less than 100 people, and the guy running it went to jail. Because what we do from a procedural standpoint, and it's Mel, it's Rebecca, it's me, it's all the rangers, all the placement team, everybody who gets on the radio, and we go sound check essentially across the entire burn. They know what we're doing. They're hearing that on our radio and on their own scanners, and they respect and understand that we're trying the best that we can to resolve the problem. So people after us basically said, "Well, how come they don't get arrested?" And he got arrested. That's the difference in having those SOPs and having all these volunteers that work so hard to make sure that Mel doesn't go to jail.
Go through the stack of the questions before you go into another subject.
Yeah, just
so,
maybe a guide.
So when you guys are done, is that pretty much
Let's
it?
jump to questions.
Okay, so before you do, actually, Super John, second.
Yeah, I just wanted to real quick. You said it was better this year, so compared to 2011 to this year, how many less, like, did you receive less sound complaints, more sound complaints, or more?
Yeah, you can if you want. I think we had more.
The question, for those of you who couldn't hear him, was compared to 2011, did we have more sound complaints, less sound complaints, etc.? In terms of actual complaints from the community, there's probably not a lot of difference. It's our reaction capabilities that were different. But I will tell you this, in 2011, we had an unofficial count, because we didn't do placement in 2011, that we had 21 sound camps across the entire burn. In 2012, we had more than 50. So we more than doubled the number of registered sound camps. We had 80 theme camps in total that registered and got placed. We more than doubled the number of sound camps, and yet we actually had an easier time with law enforcement.
So I wanted to applaud the placement team. I think that worked wonderful.
I'm only the event lead. It was my baby, but the placement leads, unfortunately, I don't think either one are here. Jacob Davis, who, by the way, I think is running for the board, so keep that in mind, and Brad Tomlinson from Headroom were your two placement leads.
And I think that allowed us as a large theme camp, and allowed us to really focus on what we wanted to bring a lot of our toys. Usually we bring kind of one of our toys, and with that we were able to bring everything a bit, because we knew we could place that, we knew it was predictable for us, and I think Sean would probably agree.
And I was going to say, we've heard campaigns. I thought that the sound worked awesome this year. They came up, I was DJing at our camp, came up and asked to turn down. I turned it down immediately. They said, "We'll come back to you." And about 7 or 8 minutes later, the ranger came up and said, "Okay, what did you go back to what you're doing?" And it's like, cool. Went right back up. And it was just having a nice, and knowing that was going to happen. It was nice to know that there was a process, and we're like, okay, scale the process.
Do you think that eventually the sound complaints are going to be the sound complaints are going to happen? Are they eventually going to cause us to not be able to have the event at Cherokee Farms, or do you think it's other reasons? Or
No, in my opinion, I'll give it to Rebecca right after. So, in my opinion, sound will be the reason.
Right. That's what, to rephrase, are they eventually going to get tired of us and tell us this is it? That's what you do. You think that's going to happen eventually or not?
I think right now, the way we sit right now, the way you said before, we sold actually 3,499 tickets because we love our prime numbers, right? 3,499 tickets, and I think if we had sold 500 more, we would have been using the money from that to bail Mel out of jail. I think we're at capacity there, and we almost have to start considering more drastic measures like limiting the number of big sound camps, because we were right on the cusp of having too many this year. So I think that will be, unfortunately, if and when we leave Cherokee Farms, whether it's this year, 2 years, 5 years, I think that's going to be the reason, especially if we want to keep growing Alchemy to a higher population. Did you want to have anything to add, Nicole?
I will tell you, from my experience with doing this for a long time, the only issue we've ever had with local comps is sound. Ever. They have no other complaints about us. Now, I don't want to speculate and say for sure that it will eventually bring us to an end there, but I will say that if anything will, it will be that.
Just real quick, do they see a positive to us being there in terms of the money we dump on the Walmart and stuff like that? You guys know that feedback?
We're working on that. The last 2 years, we've gone to talk to Walmart, and we tell them what to stop for the burners, and they appreciate that. We've talked to the local gas stations and given them suggestions on how to make money when burners come in. We're like, these are the kind of things that you need to have here because these are the things that we're looking for and that our participants are looking for. There's mixed feelings about us in that county. If we go up to 5,000 people next year, please tell me. If we do that, we will easily be 3/4 of the entire population of the city of Lafayette. And that scares them a lot. But they also know that we bring in a massive influx of money. And so we're working on it. It's going to take a little bit of community liaison stuff. We've been sort of slowly doing that over time. There's definitely some ideas I have to sort of escalate that a little bit. I need to go and have some meetings with the county attorney and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think we're okay for now. They're tentative about us. I think, who's next? Eric? Did you have anything? Okay.
You have talked about when you leave Cherokee Farms. Have you made any investigations into where Alchemy will go next?
Nope. I have a couple of places that I've heard of, but I haven't wanted to do any personal looking. I can't speak for anybody else involved in that.
A couple, I just want to jump on Dee's point real quick. A couple of the other ELTs, one of the ELTs that can't be here today because he's stuck at work, Tuna, who most of you know, has done some research as well, has some properties that we're going to visit this winter to check out. And even the landowner at Cherokee Farms, because he understands that we're getting too big for his property, has recommended to us other properties that he thinks would be perfect for us. So, we're doing some research. It's all preliminary discussions right now. We're not saying that we're moving tomorrow, but obviously we have to be ready if and when that might have to happen.
Who's next?
You got one last question.
Okay.
What have we thought about doing in the community of Lafayette, such as making the community better in some way, since they graciously host us every year?
It's a great question. For those of you who might not be able to hear, either on camera or in the back of the room there, Karen's normally louder than that. What have we thought about or started doing in terms of the Lafayette community or Wofford County, which is the county that it's hosted, that the property is in. Rebecca mentioned we go up there actually during the year prior to the big events. We talk to people in City Hall, we talk to fire marshals, police. We also talk to local businesses like Walmart and the Crystal and the gas stations. We were trying to convince the gas stations, for example, this year that they should go get a roll-off dumpster, put it on their property, and as people were leaving with all their L&T trash, which hopefully you were, not everybody was, just, but for those of you that did, charge $2, $3 a bag to be able to dump your trash right there instead of driving all the way back to wherever you came from with your trash in your car. The other things that we've talked about doing, and this is the whole board and the ELT and even the ELT for Euphoria as well, is doing some community projects. One of my favorites is what BlackRock Solar does for all the school systems in Nevada. I would love to see us do something for the public school systems in the county because that affects every single family that's probably calling in and complaining about us. And so we're directly reaching the people that might call and complain 3 months later and putting a lot of goodwill out there.
That's basically the answer.
Got one thing to say on that is that
I'd like to add that we do currently, that I would like to see us continue to do a little more often, is we try to buy as much stuff up there locally as we possibly can. We're trying to move more toward buying a lot of our wood from local vendors in Lafayette. And I know that that's a little risky because, you know, we have effigies that have to be pre-prepared, and we have the temple that's mostly built off-site. But anything that we can possibly manage to rent or to buy locally, we do that. So that's something that pushes a little money into their economy, and they can see that. They can actually see the change in their economy. So we're working on it. If anybody has ideas, though, please let us know. This is all new for us, so we're trying to be better neighbors.
Eric, the next question.
You kind of answered that, but maybe kind of extending on that is it maybe adding a way for the community to be able to submit ideas of how to help that community.
Absolutely.
So make it more visible to everyone what we can do to make that a better make it more welcome.
I had a twofold question. One, have we mapped the areas on the property where we could put the theme camps, sort of like the way Valhalla is done at Transformers, where the 24/7 sound is in a zone that doesn't broadcast as heavy. Yeah. And
that's something that we spent a lot of time doing, actually. Brad Tomlinson from Headroom, who's a sound genius, William Destroy Sound, also helped us plan some of that out, even though he wasn't on the placement team this year. But we did a lot of work to try and map that. The real issue we have with that specific property is
the valley.
It's the valley, and realistically, it can be the wind. It is one day, and you know, Sean Mann was a good example of this. One day, dam camp was one of the issues. Another day, dam camp wasn't even close to the issue. One day, you could hear the generator that was powering all the cool stuff that was going on up at the effigy. You could hear people having a conversation, and then the next night, you couldn't hear any of that, but you could hear everything going on at Troy's camp or somewhere else. So the property actually changes over the course of the week too. But we did do a lot of that, which is why we were able to have so many more sound camps and still have the same or maybe even a little less in terms of complaints. It's the best we're going to get on that property at this point.
And the second part of that was, I did see, there's a little park right there downtown Lafayette as you're driving in and out, and there's a bridge there. And I thought if we did a real visible art project that exhibited craftsmanship and skill, and so we're visibly bettering your park. There's a bridge that's beautiful, or a fountain or something. The school's idea is great too, but if we get something that shows like we're craftsmen and artists, not just out here.
It's a great idea. It's a great idea.
No, is that the next question?
Actually, I'm gonna answer.
I want to speak to him for just one other second. I don't know if all you guys know, but I'm actually from there. Don't tell anybody. So one of the things that we need to be very careful of, because I think that giving them art is a fantastic idea. They are very practical though. So if we can give them art that also has a function like a bridge, then that's a really, really good idea. Something like the school idea is something they will see and see an absolute benefit from. So any ideas like that, please funnel them our way, because it has to be practical. Mel and I spend way too much time reading this thing called the Lafayette Underground, where they talk about all the things that they need and want for the community. We should all scan that and then use that to our advantage and see if we can make it better for this. Go ahead, Mel.
Actually, you guys pretty much answered it, but one thing to definitely touch on is there's also a really great thing that the cops are trying to do. It's called the Empty Stocking Funds. And so when we're with the cops, one way that we are making them happy and kind of fulfilling a little bit of our community needs, a lot of times we're busting locals on these sound checks coming in. And so we stop them and they apologize profusely and they want to buy a ticket right there. And we send them home, but home to donate what they were going to pay for a ticket into the Empty Stocking Fund. They actually made some decent money from it this year. So please the cops and help the community, and it's one of the ways that we're kind of helping to bridge that gap. And I think that there can be a lot of good that can be done in that direction.
For those of you online that couldn't be here, Mel was talking about this thing in Walker County called the Empty Stocking Fund that the police department works with, and she was saying that something that we have done this year especially is people that sneak in when we're escorting them off the property, we encourage them to donate to the Empty Stocking Fund, and the cops love us for that. Does anybody have any more questions about sound so I can move on to other things? Okay, go ahead.
So with it all being said, sound is like super unpredictable, and I know that has been discussed on Facebook or whatever, but to put just a limit on how loud you can be in general after a certain time, do you feel like that's more important than trying to move to another site? And or what can you actually do to say everybody needs
We did both actually, Megan, this year. Brad, who's not here, one of the things he actually did, once we had the full placement map, which hopefully everybody took advantage of, right, guys? Everybody worked very hard on it, but once we had the full placement map, Brad actually wrote specific sound guidelines, decibel levels, how to point your speakers for every single individual sound camp. He wrote them up, a whole thing based on where they were placed and how it affected the land. And that helped a lot, but there was still, as everybody's been talking about, we had at night, we had to do wide sound checks where we had ranger teams in each location. You turn down, you go up, you turn down, you go up, until we found problems. The one thing we were trying not to have to do was really just tell everybody, oh, at 10 p.m. you've all got to be under X decibels, at 12 p.m., at 2 a.m., and eventually turn everybody off by 4 a.m. or something like that. Because not everybody's the problem. Not somebody could be at 100 decibels in one spot, 80 decibels in another, and it's the 80 decibel person that they're hearing in Lafayette. And B, because wherever we can, we don't want to restrict anybody from doing anything. I mean, we have to, but sometimes we have to, but wherever we go, we don't want to restrict people. So it's a careful balance, but yeah, a lot of work went into that this year.
Right, so then with that being said though, if it has to be telling everybody they have to be this quiet versus moving somewhere else, how has any thought been what's more important?
That's up to you guys.
Yeah, it's been a discussion point, but it really actually needs community discussion. That's something that we need to know from you guys. Would you rather have less sound camps or sound restrictions at night, or would you rather move to a different property where you don't have to have it? Would you rather have a smaller number of sound camps, or would you rather have more sound camps but they all have to be smaller individually? Those are the things we need to hear from you guys.
Real quick, we've got, probably it's 4:30, so we should probably wrap up Alchemy in the next 15 minutes.
Okay, I'll give some overviews. Another thing that we did this year that was awesome was we finally fixed the parking lot issue. Hooray! A lot of thanks to Duff. He stepped up and ran that team for us and he did a bang-up job. The parking lot finally functioned as it should. We had a few snafus with Exodus, but we will fix those for next year because we figured it out, so that's really good. Some of the things that we need to improve on, as always, we have to improve teardown. Because I don't know what it is about Alchemy and Euphoria, but it always has to rain on teardown, no matter what time of year we have these events. So we have to find some way to make it so that A, we're not all dead when it comes time for teardown. We need a much, much bigger team. And B, please stop the rain. So we'll work on that with time. Go ahead.
You need a bigger team for teardown, knowledgeable people for the way I was. I asked many times if I could.
That I can't answer because I was not on the APW team. It won't happen again, I'll tell you that, as long as I'm having anything to do with this, which is debatable. What else do I need to cover? I guess honestly, I can't think of anything else that's new or needs improvement or whatever. So I'm going to open the floor.
This last question.
I actually just had something to play off of what Mel said. Maybe there's something that we can do in that team or something on the Alchemy website where the community can donate to a stocking point or something else and then all of our money can be pulled to Alchemy and Alchemy as an organization can say, here you go, have some money for building.
Sounds good to me.
I think that should be
Wait, am I calling or you calling?
Corey's calling. With all that question.
Okay.
With the issues that we've touched on so far, has the ELC considered, and I guess this might also be for the board, have you considered reducing the size of Alchemy, and we've touched on this a little bit, just to curb some of the issues that are continuing to come up?
Nope. We have never thought about reducing the size of Alchemy. The only thing that we've talked about, we spent a lot of time this year talking about whether it should stay the same as last year, or if we wanted to increase it, or if we wanted to let it be a free-for-all and not have a cap. I don't know if you guys are aware of how quickly Alchemy has grown over the years. It has until this year when we finally capped it for the first time, it grew at 65% every single year. And so it's massive. It got really, really big, really, really fast. And so we ran into a lot of growing pains for 2011. So we made the decision this year as a board that we needed to cap it and catch up with some of our infrastructure, catch up with emergency services and things like that. For me, speaking personally, I think we did a great job and that we're exactly where we need to be for 3,500 people. Now, whether or not we're ready for an additional increase, we'll have to discuss that as the year passes. I don't know, but we're not interested in decreasing, at least I'm personally not. I think we're okay, 3,500 people.
You mentioned earlier that the financials are now closed.
Yes.
Okay, does that mean that those of us who are waiting for reimbursement will be getting that soon?
Yes, you should be getting that very soon now. I was waiting on, I actually have one other thing that I'm waiting on. I'm not in charge of the checking account anymore, so I will see to it that you get your money. But, yeah, yes, you should be getting your reimbursement. Anybody that's actually waiting on reimbursements, they're only, I think, 3 weeks. So, yeah, you will.
We saw some really blatant violations of leave no trace.
I agree.
Oh, yes, we did.
And I'm just wondering if you have some insight into what the heck is going on with people being so brazenly, like next to our camp there was like an entire couch in garbage in the back trails, like by the homestead. There were bags of garbage stuck in the trail, and someone had told them, hey, don't do that, and they pretty much ignored them or stuff like that.
The question is about leave no trace and how this continues to be a problem with every single year of Alchemy, and I will wholeheartedly agree with you. And love to hugs and all of our LNT team, also Jill who's around. LNT is a problem for Alchemy. It continues to be a problem for Alchemy. We're going to have to work together as a community to continue to enforce this. I don't have a solution to this. Unfortunately, it's just an issue that we need to continue to work on. But LNT this year was insane, and you're absolutely correct about that. There was an entire campsite that I packed up, with literally people's clothes and their entire tent were left on the property Tuesday morning. I mean, that's ridiculous, you guys. I mean, we have to work on it.
I can speak for some of those couches. I had 4 trailers. Some of them was FG, some of them was my team camp. One of those got compromised by one of my team members that batshit crazy. And I actually came back to the site on Wednesday morning to get those couches and other things. And they were already gone and taken care of. So I partially apologize for that. As the Buck Stops Here guy for the FG team, I'm sure you saw some of the other tracks that was left. It was about one of my guys. He had some sort of episode, and I just couldn't keep up with it.
Is like the ELT team lead kind of thing?
Yeah, I was the last person on site as far as walking around and making sure that everything was in place. And I talked to Smitty, and he said, not that it's any real consolation, but he said that our event leaves the least amount of trash on the property as any other event that is on there. I also noticed that it wasn't really so much theme camps or like any of the infrastructure of Alchemy. It was mostly someone way in the woods that was personally camping, and they left their entire campsite because it rained and they didn't want to deal with it. So it's really an individual basis, not so much big.
Oh, right, and by now I've totally forgotten. But I did want to add to, just in feedback-wise, that I think that there is zero harm in staying at the ticket cap the way that it is, to give yourselves an extra year to get all your ducks in a row. There is nothing wrong with that in terms of the organization, in terms of the people participating in the burn. Reserve that right. It's totally your call, and as a community member, I think that you should do that to give everybody a point to catch up and really make the burn the way we want it to be and the way that it needs to be.
Okay, I'm going to say something real quick. We got 10 more minutes left for an Alchemy, so we need to keep all these questions and responses as fast as possible. So, forward to the next.
My question is to respond to it. I think that we should look into having a team stay after the event, like after an event. Even though we're not under the same restrictions, I would like to see L&D held the same standards. Even just have a small team of people stay afterwards to make sure everything is removed after everyone else is gone.
Staying for LNT, by the way, is got other benefits. I think every single person that stayed for cleanup on Tuesday ground scored a tent. I am not kidding.
Okay, any other fast comments?
I was just thinking
we're going to go in stack order, but just make it really quick as we go through the stack.
was looking, assuming I'm involved in this at all, at switching away from signed waivers this coming year and instead having that you have to read the waiver before you can purchase a ticket. We don't want to overwhelm people, but I wouldn't mind putting a link to say this is what you're getting into and hope that people click it. We've had some feedback in the past that was negative about having people have to read too much stuff before they get their tickets. I don't know where we fall on that, but the idea is well taken, and I think it's something to consider for sure.
That's it.
I just want to add real fast that I remembered what my suggestion was from before, and that maybe you guys should separate out the cleanup team from APW. You know, have APW be a during event thing, and then have a separate breakdown crew so that those people haven't been there 2 weeks already. They're not burnt out. They didn't do anything during the burn, and they've set aside their personal time to stay the week after and make sure everything gets cleaned up.
You really think there are people that are not burned out after Alchemy? If I'm an event lead this year, that is absolutely already on my plans.
Finally, in light of the LNT discussion, where do we stand with Cherokee Farms right now?
We're perfectly fine with Cherokee Farms right now. I went up there and smoothed things over. It's fine.
I know where the question comes from, not the person, but I know why people are asking. There was some online chatter about things being left on property, things not being cleaned up. Because of the torrential downpours, there were parts of the property that actually weren't even accessible because they were washed out. They were, you had to drive basically a car with a snorkel through to get to them. When we went back up on site, the landowner had called and said there was still some of our infrastructure up, and we went back up to the site a couple of weeks after Alchemy, and there were some pieces of Alchemy infrastructure. There were some areas that couldn't be cleaned, mostly because of the weather, the torrential downpours, and the fact that the breakdown crew that had been arranged couldn't do the work they needed to do. We did end up paying an extra fee to the landowner because he had his people go and clean all that up for us. We did go up there with a small crew and get the rest of it put away into the container. But once we did those two things, everything is great. Like I said, the landowner is even suggesting to us other friends of his where we may need to move, if we ever have to move out, we could go to. So our relationship is very good with Cherokee Farms itself, despite those couple little hiccups after that.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to know what either of you think about bolstering the volunteer system and how we're going to compensate for that. I know there are a lot of people that were working the entire burn, making up for unfilled slots and stuff. Do you have any ideas?
You tell me. I would absolutely love any input from the community because I feel like all we've done over the last 3 years is beg people to get involved. I'm not sure how else to do that. And so, there's only so much begging you can do in your community. We have 3,500 people that attend this burn. There's no reason why we shouldn't have enough people that are volunteering for things. One of the primary things about a burn is that all of us are volunteers. The event lead teams are volunteers, all the team leads are volunteers, everybody that makes it go are a bunch of volunteers. People that run their theme camps are all volunteers. None of us get compensated for any of this stuff. And so we just have to make sure that enough people know that that's what they're supposed to be doing, and we need to encourage our friends. We need to encourage our theme camps. All of us need to be pulling our part, and that's what has to happen. If people have ideas about how to do that, let me know. It's great. We want to hear it.
One of the main things that I hear from a lot of people is they don't volunteer because they don't feel that they're qualified. Again, I don't necessarily have solutions, but as far as being one of the hugest deficits as people not even taking the initiative to begin with, is I think that the different roles and positions that require volunteers aren't necessarily explained to the community well enough to give them the comfortability to put their name down for a time shift.
I think that's a point well taken. I think it's something that we need to do a better job at.
Something else that I think we might want to be careful of is that whole begging aspect. What I noticed, for example, with the Rangers is we love those late night shifts, and they were all full because people went out and they signed up online, and then they didn't show up for their shifts. So there's a balance to be had because then you have those people who are willing to volunteer, but they see that the shifts are full, and they don't bother to check back in to see whether or not anybody showed up. So just kind of this recommendation, watch the balancing act on
It's
that
a good
aspect.
As they said, any ideas, having more volunteers helps. On the website side of things, it is going to be rewritten at least a little bit in time before next year. So if you have any suggestions on how to make the actual website volunteer system work better, or any feedback at all, I would love to hear it, either tonight or send me an email or whatever.
internet@alchemyfestival.com.
Do you know the proportion of people that stayed with theme camps overall?
I do. We didn't have a fully official count. Oh, sorry, what's your question, Nathan?
Well, it has to do with that, but basically it's giving you the idea so you can comment on it. At least our camp had a pretty good leadership aspect to it, and delegating some of the job of getting people to volunteer to the theme camp leads as a condition of getting placement, for instance, something like that, is perhaps one way to go about it. Because I know that if within the camp, instead of just encouraging, hey, you need to do this, had been part of what we were agreeing to in coming together to form the camp, I think there would have been much more peer pressure for us to meet our, the things that we reserved for it instead of just hanging out or missing it.
And that's a really good point, and Sarah actually had a really good idea on that too, that I think might have been borrowed from one of the other burns, which was to get theme camps to sponsor entire ships. I think you did that with Greeters this year, right?
Yeah, with great success.
Camp XYZ, everybody went and worked Greeters together. But to go back to the first part of your question, we had a sort of unofficial count because the number of people per theme camp was something we asked for during registration, but of course that was everybody's ballpark, not their actual. But ballpark number, 18 to 1900 of the participants at Alchemy were part of a registered and placed theme camp. So add to that the people that had their own theme camps and just kind of went first come, first served when they got there, and you're probably closer to 2,000. Well over half, closer to 2/3 of the burn.
I want to interrupt for 2 seconds and take the comments up really for Alchemy, so we need to make it really quick, but I do want to kick in, because I can keep my mouth shut, I want to talk a little bit. Our team at Transformance does a greetership every time. What we find is difficult at Alchemy is being able to have a time of block where we can all get in there. So maybe a possibility of having.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, I was going to say. There we go. Have an early entry camp to have the first shot to get blocks in, and then have single piece going.
There was definitely feedback that to have a way for whole theme camps to volunteer for
and maybe open that up early so that theme camps can get the blocks, and then have everybody else is going. So
that part's out of my hands, but it's going to be an option. It's outside.
Okay, so let's kind of close this up a little bit. So any really quick comments. I'm doing the stack before he's gone. I think
my comment was just that we had heralds this year, which worked out really well as far as spreading information, and I think that's something we definitely need to utilize next time if we're short on volunteers at a particular time, is have that nexus, like Rangers need to Rangers. So we have megaphones and wander around and try to find people that can volunteer on the spot. I think that's definitely something we need to, so the people aren't standing there doing shifts.
I ran tips for Transformance in 2 years. We do that exact same thing at Transformance. And times when I've done it personally at Alchemy, it makes a huge difference. If you can find a way to have people doing that all the time, it provides volunteers.
I've done that too.
I'm Doom and Gloom. I just wanted to follow up on the lady with the white collar as far as so many people thinking they're not qualified to do stuff. If you have any questions about, you've heard Rangers talk about, if you want to know what we do, why we do it, how to do it, if you'd be any good at it, I'll be here. Come talk to me. Feel free to follow some Rangers around on shift for the rest of the evening, or just, I think I'm probably the only one wearing Ranger regalia, but talk to me. Sign up to adopt the Rangers tonight and find out what it's all about, because that's the only way you're going to learn is to ask questions and find out. So that's all. I'm here asking questions.
Cool. Okay, any other real quick ones?
Is there going to be another town hall meeting prior to the board elections?
we have talked about it on the board. So those of you that couldn't hear the question was, will there be another town, it is a board question, but will there be another town hall prior to elections? What we've talked about, but nothing is set in stone yet, is to do a town hall on December 2nd, where it'll be election specific, and all the candidates will get a chance to talk, and the group will get a chance to ask questions, but none of that is set in stone yet. We're all still working on it, but we hope to have it. Way at the back.
If the owner of a black Ford Contour parked right there is in this meeting, please come see me afterwards.
So that was, if there's the owner of a black Ford Contour in here, please go see him.
Your wheels aren't being stolen, don't worry.
Your car's on blocks. All right. Do we want to jump?
Yeah, I think we probably want to just do a real quick decomp.
Sure. Or we could skip decomp if we're running way, because we're way behind on time. Does anybody have any big questions on decomp? All right, because I know you all want to get to the board. It starts as soon as we all shut the hell up. So, all right, now let's jump to the board of directors stuff. So, just real quick, I'm H, for those of you that haven't met me or don't recognize me without pantaloons on. In addition to being one of the event leads for Alchemy this year, I also am one of your current board of directors, although I will be stepping down because my 2-year term is up after December. And then, of course, we have Trevor Register and Sarah Griffith. There are 2 other board members who could not be here today, Dawn Fleury and Jonathan LaLiberty, who is also a Burning Man regional contact. They both, unfortunately, had other things that detained them. And then, of course, Rebecca was on the board until very recently. So those are the 6 board positions, one of which is currently vacant. And then Dawn and I will both be ending our 2-year terms. She was filling in for Troy Cobb at the end of December. So there are 3 board seats open. You guys want me to just run through the election type stuff real quick before we get started? All right, so a couple quick notes on elections, because I know that's going to be one of the questions. Nominations are now open. You don't have to nominate people here. Don't feel like everybody's got to jump up and witness or something, but there's a form on the Alchemy website to nominate yourself for the board of directors. It'll be open for approximately 2 weeks. We're still working out some of the timeline, but the goal is to close nominations on December 2nd, and then to go right back to Danielle's question, have a town hall on December 2nd where all the candidates can talk to the town hall and get questions and everything else. That'll begin the voting period, and then have voting run from December 2nd through somewhere mid-December, right around the 16th-ish, so about 2 weeks to vote, and then your new board of directors will be named. Did I leave anything out on the elections front?
Oh, we'll be sending out links and stuff.
We'll be sending out links and probably another Alchemist and instructions and whatnot sometime soon. Probably will go out as soon as the Alchemy event final report and event report is available and financials, so that we can combine it all at once, hopefully we can get that finished this week.
I had some feedback from a participant this week where they said that nominating was sort of confusing. They thought they should nominate their friends. So while you can nominate your friends, it's a lot of very specific questions. So if you want your friend to run, probably the best thing to do is tell your friend they should run so they can nominate themselves. We're not saying you can't nominate other people, but it really is intended to be self-nominating.
So that covers the basics of elections. Actually, before we jump to anything else, any questions on elections so you can answer? No? Is there anyone that's going to run? So no questions on elections. So the other thing, just a quick housekeeping item. Chu and Trevor mentioned it during their fundraiser presentation, but it bears repeating. We are trying really hard to get started earlier on everything because everything feels like a damn fire drill. So Alchemy, the Alchemy Art fundraiser, we are looking for event leads. Euphoria, we are looking for event leads. We haven't officially made big call-outs and whatnot, but if you're interested, just send an email to the board. I know one of the questions that I've seen pretty commonly in some of the discussion forums like Facebook and whatnot is there a comment box or somewhere where people can send suggestions in? Yes. It's board@alchemyfestival.com. It goes to everybody on your board of directors, whoever that'll be, and it is the best way to get the whole board's attention at once. What what else did we want to cover anything else ahead of time, or do we just want to look it up? So as you guys know, it was a quiet year for the board of directors this year. Not a lot really happened. It was a pretty quiet year. It was pretty mundane. From a board of directors perspective, and I think maybe a good place to start is what we do and what we don't do. Especially this year where you had multiple board directors. Trevor had to do it once, I did. Rebecca had to do it twice. Serving as event leads as well for some of our events. That's, at least in my opinion, and I think you both guys would agree, that's not ideal. We really want different people doing all those things. But it was a situation, especially in the case of Alchemy, where we had to. None of the board members were actually on the event lead team to start with. People dropped off that event lead team. Troy was not on the board. Well, I know he was on the board at the time. You're right, I'm sorry. None of the current board, I should say, was on the event lead team. Originally, those of us that pulled double duty had to do so because other people dropped off the event lead team and the event was in danger of not happening or having significant issues. The board, our primary function is to ensure the sustainability of the events and of the organization as a whole. So in terms of, the best way that I can put it is, we're not necessarily, we've got a lot of great, creative, talented, wonderful people, but we're not necessarily need to be the most creative folks. We are the people that make sure the events are perpetuated, dealing with things like insurance, which is probably a near and dear topic to some folks lately, especially if you're planning on camping, right? But dealing with things like insurance, dealing with things like the legalities of the corporation, the nonprofit, the LLC, some of the issues that I know we're going to get asked about momentarily. Dealing with the bigger decisions about some of the events as they relate to finances, like ticket caps, budgets, the dates of the events. Those are the types of things that we do as a board perspective, and we try very hard to give all the rest of the decisions to the event leads, to the team leads, to all the volunteers, to all the participants, to the community as a whole, wherever we can. We're obviously not perfect, as the last few weeks have shown us, but we do the best that we can. But I think maybe to go into questions, but I'll let you guys, if you want to talk first, talk, and then we'll go to questions.
I guess the only thing I'd have to add to the description is I guess the BOD is more of a bird's eye perspective. The event leads do the things, and the BOD is meant to just kind of. Oh, okay.
The one thing, if the online questions are any gauge of the room, there's one subject in particular a lot of people want to talk about. So I'm going to try my best. We're not going to cover all 21 questions, even if right now we have 20 minutes, so it's just, we can't read them that fast probably. So we're going to need to try to keep things as concise as possible. We're going to need to identify the real issues, and I need to be quite frank with some of this because a lot of this has already come out. Have you guys talked as a board and resolved any of the issues that were come up between the two different documents? Is there any resolutions to either of these?
No.
At all. So all the points of contention back and forth are still points of contention.
Yeah, to be honest, and Sarah's got some comments to that, but to be honest, at least from my perspective, we have a lot of stuff we need to get done that's, I hate to say it this way, more important than bickering between board members. We needed to get decom taken care of, we needed to get final financials done, we need to get taxes done, all the different things.
Well, that's fine. No, I'm just saying, my thought was, do we need to just take anything off the table of people having questions because it's resolved? So if it's not, then I think the number one that everybody wants here is to be heard.
So one thing I do want to add is that one of the things that we decided to do at the last meeting was to pursue outside legal consulting on the LLC and on the nonprofit corporation, how to best move forward with that. On Friday, this was a recommendation from Burning Man. I went to an organization called Georgia Lawyers for the Arts, and they are a pro bono referral service for arts-based organizations. And according to that initial presentation, we do qualify for this pro bono referral service, and so they are now working on matching us with a lawyer that will donate their time. We're still responsible for some small fees, like if we have to file paperwork with the state But the lawyer's time, if we are matched with one, will be free of charge. And so they will work with us on resolving at least the legal business issues moving forward.
The primary purpose of that lawyer, because I had somebody ask me earlier, are you guys going after each other in court? The primary purpose of the lawyer, the reason that we wanted it was we wanted to, Trevor and I and Don wanted to take a look at what was done so far and look at maybe if there were other ways we could accomplish it more effectively and just take another look. Nobody's going after each other in court so far as I know.
And actually part of the contract that we signed with them is that they consult with us, but the lawyer, we have to agree to let them step back. If anything goes to trial or anything, and again, that's not what we're wanting to do. They can't actually do that for us unless we start paying them. So that's not.
We're just looking for some.
We're just looking for outside opinions.
So it's essentially a legal audit.
Exactly. It's a consultation. It's not. We're not taking
Is that something that everybody? Is it? And also, you have to chime in a little bit with being on with AAA. Because it's going to be all AAA. Is that something that everybody?
Well, again,
the convention of that.
Well, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, is there any convention of that kind of unanimous to have it?
Well, actually, we voted. We had a consensus to put the transition to AAA on hold because there were some board members that had concerns with it.
Okay.
Just that we weren't sure it was set up in the best way. And so what we would like, and we have it now, is an outside eye. And that somebody recommended by Burning Man, somebody who works with nonprofit art places, somebody with a lot of experience setting up nonprofits. So essentially, a professional who does this for a living to come in and look at everything and say, okay, here are your options. And the hope is that once we know what those options look like, we can present those back to you guys. Because I think it's a decision we should all make together as much as possible.
And also, the one thing I want to receive too is that a lot of this is going to fall on a new board.
Absolutely.
And there might be new board members that have a lot more to bring to the board too. So. Okay.
Can we take a step back and give a 30 to 60 second version of what this problem is? I'm already confused. So if you guys can give us your 30 to 60 second version of what's going on, so everybody can follow.
That's something everybody.
Yeah, unless
I don't think there is such a thing, but we can try.
I agree at the time. So before anybody starts,
questions. Arbitrary number.
I mean, I'll say 2 minutes. 2 minutes, is that out there?
Yeah.
I'm not seeing higher.
Doing one at a time, or?
Actually, hold on a second. We got to figure out.
You guys are going to be one person being able to concise.
Yeah. So the basic issue was with moving to AAA. Myself and the other board members had concerns about that move and about the legal and the business issues on that. And again, that's not really doing it justice, but that's kind of the main point there. Is moving from Alchemy LLC to Alchemical Arts Alliance Incorporated.
Essentially, by moving to non-member with some of the proposed changes, we would be, we'd be going away from elected board. There were talk about electing other things, obviously. We don't have any bylaws for that org yet, so having an org that we're transitioning to without bylaws, without a consensus decision on how we want to do the structure, with a month and a half to figure it out, with some questions about, whoa, is this really the way we want to do it? We wanted to slow it down and roll it back and say, hey guys, is this a good idea? That was essentially, I guess, our side of it. It seemed, we've been talking about it all year, yes, but there were a lot of things that didn't get fleshed out through the year, probably partially because we were all busting our ass. And, things got filed late, and things got filled in a certain way, and bylaws weren't done yet, so, switching over to an org in a month and a half with no bylaws, and then all of a sudden we're changing structure, not just as a surprise to the rest of the board, but probably as a big surprise to you guys too, did not feel right to us. A few people in a room should not make a decision about the shape of the community. That to me is a community decision, something that big.
Yeah. So I'll give you kind of my 30 to 60 second version of the board meeting by buddies, right? Whatever it is. And I'll give you more in a timeline kind of a fashion. At the start of the year, we recognized a need to move away from the current LLC due to the ownership issues and some other issues relating to the original start of the LLC many years ago. We went through a lot of different options. We talked to a couple of lawyers and went to some classes at the Burning Man Regional Summit. And one of the things they actually recommended was whatever you do, don't become a nonprofit. But we really wanted to, because we really wanted to have be able to do a lot more community outreach and whatnot. So they said, well, just don't get 501c3 status. So we came back from that summit and we consulted with another attorney locally here in Atlanta, and all three recommended the same thing, which was to go to a non-member nonprofit organization. In a non-member nonprofit organization, the board of directors is appointed, not elected. That's one of the key differences, because there's no members to elect the board of directors. Now, you can write in your bylaws after that you can elect your board of directors, you can elect an executive committee, you can do whatever else, as long as you write your bylaws. At the time, it wasn't as well communicated as everybody thought as to what we were trying to do. There was some confusion. I don't want to get into all of that because it gets a lot of he said, she said, and emails and everything else. But long story short, attorneys recommended non-member nonprofit. We filed articles of incorporation as a non-member nonprofit with all 6 of the, at the time, board members as the original incorporators. What that means is that throughout sometime during this year or before we move to the new nonprofit, all 6 people need to get together and they need to decide as the original incorporators, what's the new structure going to be? Will it be a board of 5 people, a board of 9 people, an executive committee? Whatever it's going to be, that group has to go out and decide that. We didn't decide it throughout the bulk of the year. As Sarah pointed out, everybody was busting ass. I was doing double duty on the LT, as was Rebecca. Trevor was also doing double duty on the art fundraiser. Sarah, in addition to running greeters, also was running a theme camp. You know, everybody was doing double duty.
I worked 4 events this year.
So, all right, so I'm getting the orchestra music over here for those of you who can't hear, but the short version of that is that when we got together in October, started to discuss that. We voted to move to the new nonprofit, then we started discussing work structure, and during that discussion realized that not everybody fully understood what that meant. And so some people got uncomfortable, and then in the November meeting, obviously, everybody knows the drama that unfolded there. And sometime during that drama, the very simple motion to go back on that vote and just not move to the new nonprofit occurred somewhere in the midst of all of that drama. So we're not moving to the new nonprofit, at least not in the original end of December deadline. So now we're still the LLC with the legal challenges that entails. But now we're having an outside counsel come in, take a look, and give us more guidance going forward. And this time, paid outside counsel that hopefully will get more detailed advice from.
Okay, I want to play moderator instead of facilitator here. Bring up a couple quick questions. I know that there's some outstanding tax issues. By tabling the decision to go forward with the AAA, is that going to have any significant legal or tax issues?
Yes, absolutely. The move to go backwards on that puts us at significant legal risk.
Is it material or is it just?
It is very material.
This holdup might have, are we talking thousands, tens of thousands?
I would say tens of thousands is very likely. This is one of the reasons we pushed to get it done by the end of the year. And we knew it was an aggressive timetable to get the new structure all fleshed out, and the bylaws fleshed out by the end of the year. But that was the pressure.
But the bottom line is that the repercussion of this choice, because the simple thought, I mean, I think everybody in this room says, okay, well, simply we're moving too fast and let's stop and let's just really think about this and go a little slower. But we need to really decide that, is that delay worth X number of dollars? Is it worth 1,000? Sure. Is it worth 10,000? I don't know. Is it worth 30,000?
Well, we also moved to start the process of getting an outside accountant because, I mean, while Age is very skilled, we all do a lot of work. And I feel like we're way past the point that we need people dedicated to these jobs. I completely understand the concerns about the taxes. I share the concerns about the taxes. No, taxes are not my thing. However, I think that creating a structure, real quick and dirty, creating bylaws, all that, and then just sort of plowing forward long term could be a much worse thing for the community than just paying taxes this year.
Okay, so real quick, Rebecca.
I can actually give a comment.
So could a possible, so long as a temporary structure, has some backouts? Can we not go forward with some sort of legal structure that takes us out of the tax and still alleviates everybody's doubt as to how things are going to be organized? Like if in the bylaws, the first line in the bylaws say, January 1st, these bylaws will change, or whatever. I'm making things up, but is there some sort of back out that can happen?
Now I have a question, and I'll just speak loudly. Who's going to write those bylaws?
Possibly this attorney, or a attorney.
The attorney could be very helpful, yes. Do you mean the short term?
Yeah. No, I mean who's going to write the bylaws. It's not a short-term thing. When your bylaws are set, they're set. So who's going to write those?
Well,
what he's talking about
I'm asking a very naive question here. I don't know, but is there a kick-out clause that can be put into the? Because it's a valid concern. I can see both sides. I can see how things are done expeditiously to try to save our whole community tens of thousands of dollars. So we're trying to go forward. But I can also see reservations of people saying, whoa, wait a minute, let's not make any decisions that we're not going to be able to back out of. So, can we not move forward, save the community? I want to eat my cake and eat it too. I think everybody here wants a cake and eat it too. Can we not move forward, save $30,000, and set up something that is not irreversible? I don't know. Is that possible?
I'm not sure. Hopefully we'll hear from that attorney very soon and they can advise us on that specific situation. If anybody knows any references, if anybody has this specific experience. As far as writing the bylaws long term, obviously a consult would be helpful, but what I would really like to see us do long term is actually move forward and set up the forums like we've talked about doing so we can have more productive discussions. We've already had a couple of community submissions for running those. As far as I know, it's not that we're generally opposed to forums, it's just that none of us have any time to manage them. Yeah, I know, Patrick. I'm sorry. But I've essentially, everybody that's come and said something to me about it, I said, that's a great idea. Why don't you write a detailed plan of proposals for how we can do that? And I would really like to see us have more open board meetings, have them in public places so we can discuss things like this.
Those are all separate issues.
I'm talking specifically to the bylaws. I want to involve the community as much as possible.
I think we all agree. And I don't think anybody here on the board would disagree with that also. But the root of the problem is how to get past this one now, this impasse. And the question, and I'll put it to is are there any attorneys? There was a couple of attorneys that spoke up. Are any of the attorneys that spoke up online in the room? There's nobody here.
They're busy.
The attorney in the community that actually specializes in nonprofit work that spoke up online isn't here today. He almost canceled a prior engagement because he actually sits on another nonprofit board that he needed to be at. But he couldn't be here, but he is one of the people running for the board, so that's good news from that perspective. The other thing I just wanted to clarify real quick is you were talking about a dollar figure. While you guys were talking, I went ahead and added it up. The actual risk is, number one, every single penny that this community, this organization has today can go away because the owner of the LLC could turn around tomorrow and take it down the The second is 2 years worth of tax issues on the income taxes from the old LLC, which we cannot fix because none of us own the company, is probably in the neighborhood of $20,000 to $30,000. So between those two, you're talking about $90,000.
And we cannot get extensions.
No, I mean, there's tax deadlines and everything else. Now, the tax issue isn't critical today. The potential, the risk associated with the LLC being yanked back and all the assets with it is not critical today, only because we have faith that those people wouldn't do that. But the risk is very imminent and there. And that's why we were trying to get that done. To go to your other question regarding the timing, could we do something temporary? If we had all played nice together in October and actually fleshed out the structure and everything else, which was 3 hours of the board meeting then and continued it online, continued it in November instead of what did happen, then we possibly could have gotten something by the end of the year. I would say now where we're at, I don't see how we get to it by the end of the year.
I mean, and I'm naive here. Can we just not say, we've got incorporators, our bylaws are, we're going to get past this point, and then we're going to make real bylaws. I mean, something legalese that, Rebecca, yes, no, shake. Is that possible? Is that not possible based on your?
I would be very hesitant. I mean, I am not a corporate lawyer, I'm a criminal attorney.
I understand.
Not licensed.
No, I understand. neither am I.
But my concern would be if we commit as incorporators to a set of bylaws, unless we're very, very specific, I would be hesitant to submit to the state or whatever official capacity.
So then the quick answer is no, then.
I don't know. I mean, we would need to consult with outside
I don't
counsel.
think we have anybody to answer that question. We did it for a while. We should probably move on.
Yeah. Okay.
There's some good online questions.
Yeah,
we should alternate online questions.
Yeah, that sounds good. So try to move back.
Okay, so you already answered my question about the difference between a board member and an event team lead, and mostly what I have really is feedback, because the sense that I get out of all of this is that all of you guys are partly overworked, and my understanding of it always was that the board is a policy function. You guys are there to make the policy that makes all of our events happen, and then the event team leads are a totally other thing. With all of that being said, I think that you guys have been talking for a while about how you need to rewrite all the bylaws anyway, because they're outdated and they're not serving you. So it seems weird to me that it should be a surprise that the nonprofit was going to be a rewriting of the bylaws, because you had to do that anyway.
It wasn't a surprise to everybody.
Right. So with that being said, too, my feedback is mostly that one, when you guys are rewriting, I think you should make it so that people who are on the board cannot be event team leads, and that they are not allowed to do that. And that when you are again rewriting the bylaws, that some more consideration needs to come in for who can actually sit on the board, because my biggest concern becomes people sitting on the board who don't understand all of the stuff that we're talking about. You can teach yourselves a lot of things, and I've learned a lot sitting through all of this. And in my very minimal like professional function as a bookkeeper, I understand a lot of what's happening, but I've also had to sit here on the internet and go, what does this really mean? Is there any consideration into making it so that in order to have to sit on the board, you have to have a minimal amount of business, corporate, and or legal sitting?
I want to speak to that because I have some strong opinions about this. I know that there's been a lot of stuff flying this week, and I think that maybe some people have the impression that it's normal for burn boards to be all business people, and it's not. I mean, there are burns where they specifically look for an artist and a community person and a business person and a this. They want them to be a swath of the burn community. Now, that's not to say that that's what we have to be, but just because there's one useful skill set doesn't mean it's not the only useful skill set. And I mean, I personally ran because it seemed like the board was disconnected from the community, and I wanted to be that arm of it. So I want to be very, very careful that just because we have this going on right now, we don't sort of throw out the baby with the bathwater and say, well, we don't need an artist or this or that on the board anymore.
And to add on to that, I do think that we do need people who understand business. There's 3 people that I can think of off the top of my head that have expressed interest in running that have the exact kind of experience that I think you're talking about. And I think that's critical. And one thing, if you look at Apogea, they're a Colorado burn, about 1,000 people, so a little smaller and definitely different kind of issues. You look at their board election site, and then again, we don't have to be like everybody else, but one of the things they look at is they want a business person, but they want an artist, and they want to hit all of the spots. And so I do think, especially as we start dealing, we dealt with over $150,000 this year, 180, I think.
$200,000 this year.
Okay. And the point is, that's a lot of money. And so we do need to have some people on there that understand the business. But I personally don't think that the entire board needs to be business people. I think we need to fill all the levels.
Megan, I think you bring up a good point about business experience versus other types, and that's been a lot of discussion, right? About passionate, talented individuals. I think how Emily put it, right? Kudos to you. Yeah. And those are all important things. I think it depends on the model, and that's been one of the challenges, right? I mean, some boards, like Apogea is a great example. They have an artist, they have a business person, they have this, they have that. That board also runs the event. So that's also doubling as the event a team. And that's part of the issue. And that's part of what we were talking about. Part of what we, all of us that are sitting up here, plus those that couldn't make it, need to figure out is, do we separate that out? Do we have a board that just does legal, financial stuff, and then have an executive committee that's the artists and the PR people and whatnot that do those other things? Do we keep it all together and kind of have people pull from different skill sets? That's a lot of good questions, and it's a lot of good discussion. No one model is perfectly right. One of the models we discussed in October, and it was the one that I think Rebecca started the proposal on, that we all kind of brainstormed into, was splitting it out and having a small board that just did legal and financial, so you could have mostly business people on that, because that's all they did. They're not creative, they're people like me that sit in the room all day and punch on a calculator. But and then have an executive committee or planning committee, somebody better than me, more creative, will come up with a better name, that is the group that manages all the events, all the special projects, all the community efforts. They do all of those things. I wouldn't even want to be on that committee because I'm not the creative guy. I'm not the right one for it. I think it's good to split them out, but it's not the only working model. They could all be together. We could all make that model work. The question is, can we get together and make that work? So.
Qualifier about why.
Yes, 30 second
Yes.
follow-up.
So I only ask it because I feel like the division that happened because it was the creative people with drive and passion that are great, and then the people who were legal business minded going headbutting because some people didn't understand what other people did, and that's why I asked that question.
And that's why I personally see splitting it out as a better option. That way I don't have to be creative.
Okay, we're going to go on to non-aligned.
Everybody run. Karen's got a microphone.
Push me to the end. I'm going to try to combine some of the online questions because they all touch on a lot of the same things. I really hope that I can do everyone justice who added in. Alright, one thing that a few people touched on is obviously there's a lot going on with the current board and a lot of issues from the past. Could it be an idea for either the old board to resign themselves to focusing on the old board's issues and have just an all-new board focus on the new issues, creating the new bylaws and moving forward, or possibly just getting in an all-new board to cover all of this and kind of start fresh?
So essentially, have a new election.
Everybody resign and put all five.
Or just put all five and put all the
Either
petitions in.
everybody if all five put up for adoption, is that an option? Or having the old board still working together to focus on the old issues that they've been a part of, and working with the new board to allowing the new board to simply work on new issues to move forward.
The whole board stepping down it's obviously complicated. On a basic level, I feel like you guys voted me in here, and I'm here because you want me here. And if you don't want me here anymore, then I don't want to be here anymore because we did what we thought was good for the community. We said, okay, this thing's important, so you need to know about it. It's complicated because having all new board members at once is pretty destabilizing, and we're already pretty destabilized. It's the reason that we rotate out by years. And as far as the personal conflict stuff, that carried over some of the ELTs, which we didn't talk about as much. It's in the board. It's a lot comes down to that it's the same group of people that started the burn and has been running it. And to some extent, that just needs to be opened up pretty much everywhere. I know I personally would not run for another board term. I said when I took one that I would not run for another board term because I'm a big fan of new blood. But as far as the stepping down, I think that's a question we should answer when it's less heated, and I think that's a question we should answer with more than the people in this room. Because even if we said, okay, everybody vote, that's not everybody. And I don't know.
I'll echo what Sarah said about, I'm just a guy who got some votes, and if the community decides that that's not, I'm here for you guys. And I also agree that all of us stepping down immediately is probably not the best idea because there are some issues that need to be resolved. And one thing that I think will be the focus, that should be the focus, is of this new board is to make sure that we can hand off afterwards. I've been toying around a lot with the idea of the past year of would I run for another term? And what happened recently hasn't been my answer, and that's absolutely not. I think that the best thing that can happen for this community right now is new blood, new people that are not connected to the current group. And my focus for now would be to make sure that we can do that, absolutely. And that's our focus. Let's get this legal situation figured out.
So, from my perspective, I actually think it's a fantastic idea. I think it's exactly what should happen. This is nothing to do with the current issue, but I think if the focus is what does the community want, then why not put all 5 seats on? I mean, I know one of the suggestions that several folks, including some in the crowd, had made was all 5 board members should not only resign, but promise to never run again, including this election. That may be a little too extreme for me, but I'd be willing to do it if everybody else was. But I think the compromise there, and I think this is a great idea, is let's do exactly that. Let's all step down. If we want to leave it up to the community, all step down, and if you want to run for a 1-year term, I want to run for a 1-year term, whatever it is, let's all step down, let's put our names in the hat, and let the community decide in these elections, do they want us back in for 1 more year or 2 more years, and we can make 2 of the seats for a year and 3 of the seats for 2 years, just like it would have been as if everybody dropped out, and then you'd know. And as far as the transition, that's a really good point. That's certainly an issue, but the reality is we ask every outgoing board member to stay on, attend at least the first meeting or multiple meetings of the new board to help with transition, to help with turnover. We do it every year. I don't think there's ever been a board member who's refused that I can think of. And I'm sure, I don't want to speak for you guys, but I'm sure you guys would do that too if there was a transition. So personally, I say it's a great idea and let's do it.
I do want to speak. I think it's a fantastic idea. I also think it's a fantastic idea that moving forward we do set qualifications as a community. You guys decide what you think the qualifications should be for your board members. Understand that they will be handling $200,000 plus for every single year. And you guys decide what you think that board should look like in the future and dictate it. Because, you know, if you're going to vote, you may as well vote for all of it. So yeah, I think everybody should step down. We should clean slate. We should all commit to doing the best that we can for continuity and understand that we're going to have to be expedient about whatever we do next. Because this is an awful lot of money that we have that's just floating out here in the ether right now. And we have 2 major events that we run every single year. We've got to get on it.
Clove, you had an interruption.
Quick question for all of you. Posit this to the community at large. Let's just say that we go clear slate, take everybody off, that everybody else puts their name back in the hat, and they all go back on again. And the community decides that y'all go back onto the board, all the same people, to clean up the mess together. How are you going to handle it?
Well, it's 2 things, I think, right there, because there's 2 big issues we need to handle. First, we need to continue with everything that is what I'll call business as usual. The events have to keep going. We have to find ELTs. We have to secure insurance for the year. We have to do all those things that the board needs to do to begin with. The second thing that we need to do, and one of the things that's important to note, we have to do this anyway. Even if all of us walked away from the board today, which I know we're not doing because you guys said you aren't willing to do it, but even if everybody walked away from the board today, even if everybody walked out today, the 6 people who are listed as the incorporators for AAA, the nonprofit, which is Sarah, Trevor, myself, Rebecca, Jonathan, Liberty, and Dawn Fleury, we have to work together anyway to finish the bylaws, appoint a new board, whether it's us or somebody else, build that structure, and then turn it over to whoever's going to run it. That has to happen no matter what.
Assuming we switch to AAA. Yeah.
Assuming we continue to switch to AAA, that's true. We could stay as the LLC or do something else. It just depends on the risk tolerance of the community with $100,000 of money. But assuming we went forward with AA, we all have to work together. And the reality is, we're all team leads and event leads and whatnot anyway. Before I was on the board, even while I was on the board, I was a team lead for Lamplighters. I built the effigies at the Euphoria. Sarah runs Greeters. Trevor's run Conclave. I'm sure I'm leaving out something else that everybody's done that's awesome. You know, Dawn runs one of the oldest and most loved theme camps. Everybody's working together in these environments anyway. You don't count.
Actually, I have a specific question, because you're the account actor, right? So if we're still in LLC, then the end of our fiscal year is March 31st, correct?
Yes.
So the taxes.
The end of our tax year is March 31st.
Right, so the end of the taxes won't become an issue until March 31st.
The taxes are already in prior years.
Absolutely, which is why we've talked about hiring an accountant to help us resolve that. And we could actually transfer ownership of the LLC. That could be a temporary step.
Yes, but we still need to deal with the tax issue for AAA for this year.
Yes.
Whose fiscal year ends on December 31st.
See, I'm so curious how you guys work that.
We're both things simultaneously.
I did want to clarify one thing about the original question about the entire board stepping down. If the question is, do we step down immediately? I think that's a bad idea. However, I'm not opposed to that if there's a transition in place. Like Age said, there's a couple of meetings where we transition. If there's a transition plan in place, and before this question was brought up, I think this has already been started with the lawyer, with Georgia Lawyers for the Arts. So if there's a transition plan in place such that we familiarize the new board with the issues and whatnot, and that's something I would be absolutely willing to do. Just to clarify my position.
Okay, so I just want to start off by thanking all of you. You all bust your ass and do what you do because you're passionate about it. So thank you for that. But I look up, I love every one of you, but I look up and I see the board is in a dysfunctional state. I see you guys, the board, you're not working together as a team. And I see several issues there looking in at it. I don't think any one person is innocent in any of these issues. I think that it's the entity that is the board that is in the problem state. I kind of look at it and I think that eventually we need more business consulting versus lawyers and attorneys in this. We need to look at how can we maybe potentially pay a non-voting board member that's an executive in the nonprofit community that has taken nonprofits and transitioned them in starting in startups. I mean, that's a very specific skill set. That isn't an attorney skill set. I would rather see our money spent there. I also see that there's three types of board members that are healthy on the board. That there's constituents and community represented, there's business and professionals represented, and then there's people that actually run the business. I think that that's a apologize to you too. I've spoken to both of you about this in advance, but I see couples on the board as a healthy dynamic. And I love both of you individually, but as a board dynamic, I think it's healthy and healthy. And I think that
No, when you guys were on the board together in the first place.
In the first 2 years.
Absolutely. What I'm saying is there have been couples on the board, and then there are other relationships like Age and Rebecca are really tight, not necessarily a couple. I do think just generally what we need. I think generally what we need is enough of lots of different people from different groups running for the board. Just generally. Because it's essentially the same group.
Not white people.
Yes.
I do. So I do think that Super John's concern is an absolutely valid one, and all I can say, and it's up to you to decide if that's what you think. Is that I know that I've tried my absolute best to separate my relationship in the romantic sense and the relationship in the board sense. I'm not going to lie and say that I can be 100 absolute unbiased. But all I can really say to that is that I've tried my absolute best not to have that factor into my decision. But I do agree that's a huge concern. But I also want to say that there are other types of relationships that cause concerns along that vein. However, the romantic one being, I think, one of the more prevalent ones. But that's really all I can say.
So I think it's a really good point, John. It's certainly not the biggest problem we had this year, definitely not, but it's, I would say, something that did play into some problems this year. There were a lot of times where it felt like two factions on the board because people came in with, coupled up already ideas, but again, not the biggest problem. I would say this, I do believe that the bylaws for whatever the new organization is should include that people in a long-term romantic relationship with each other, which I think is how the online question phrased it, should not serve on the board together. Because I think it puts people in a terrible position. Even if they do their absolute best, it puts you in a terrible position. It's the same reason at one point in time, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. Since we're so tight, one of Rebecca's lovers wanted to run for the board in the last election. And so was Rebecca, obviously, because she got elected. And I, being roommates with one of them, strongly objected to that. And I said, I will absolutely not vote for both of you. I would vote for one or the other because I think that's a problem. And like Sarah, I was surprised that both of you guys got elected. And I don't think you're purposely doing it at all. Like I said, I think you guys try your best. I just think that's a terrible conflict of interest situation to put somebody in if you don't agree with somebody on what's best for the community, but you still have to sleep in the same bed.
I think the more important part of the question actually is, I think right now we should be focusing on how to move forward and those going in, and not how does it affect the past. So
that's why I think it should be in the bylaws for the next group.
But the more important to me, part of that is how do we make the board healthy moving forward. And I see eventually having paid business professional advice brought into the board to help give the board guidance for whoever's on the board is probably a good place to start.
Comment on the paid business professional.
We are 20 minutes over time.
Oh, wow.
Right now. So we need to figure
Just
out.
be calm and be fine.
Well, that's what it is.
Safety is important.
Fire safety is already set. There goes all night.
Final statement be done.
Made a state set up outside. Okay, well then, yeah, we can count.
We've got sound check that has to happen on
Yeah.
5:35 or something.
It already is 5:35.
Okay, I'll do the fun, because I have to walk off the stage.
It's his not, it looks bad, and people that don't know you guys are like, they're just doing it, they're together. Fine, but it's his not, just so you guys know.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I could totally consent to something like that in the bylaws. I would like to come up with some wording that includes something that maybe describes unrelated people, because I think the real problem that we have is the board's been nepotistic for a while, mostly because we've all been busting our asses to do stuff, and not a lot of other people have run. So I think the ideal board would have a bunch of people that weren't living together, or fucking each other, or dating each other, or that's what I think would be ideal. So I don't know how we write that, but I'd totally be happy to write that.
We'll do that one for now. 2 minutes each, and then we'll call it. If you guys okay with you two and then you two combining 2 minutes together? Is that all right with you guys? Whatever you think. Okay, so let's just summarize.
Are there any more?
I think everybody wants to move forward. One quick online, and then we'll do it.
Pick the best online, and then let's.
Should porn stars in California work? Actually, I'm not going to ask any more of the questions that have been posed online, but they are all really good, valid questions. What's the best way for people to get in touch with the entire board and Rebecca, so that they can also, because some of them are aimed at Rebecca and they want her input. You're going to get it anyway. What's the best way that the community can continue to discuss this if they feel the need to continue to discuss this?
Not Facebook.
So if you want to reach the entire board, board@alchemyfestival.com. I'll let Rebecca decide how she wants to be reached. Rebecca@alchemyfestival.com. There's been at least one participant that I've seen who has sent us a very detailed description on setting up forums moving forward. And I think that should be an issue for the new board to take a look at and decide, because I think that would be a really good place to continue this discussion.
I don't really spiel to give, but I'll just say this much. One thing that I will say makes me really happy is this is probably the largest turnout we've ever had for a town hall. I'm sorry that the board had to implode and attack each other for you guys to get this engaged, but I'm glad to see you here. So thank you guys for that. Quick thanks to Shawman for doing the moderating and facilitating, especially considering he came from out of state to get here to do it, right? Came from out of state to come moderate this for us. And I didn't do it at the time because I was sitting too far in the back of the class, as usual. Just a quick thanks to Emily for, at the last minute, bringing her survey results, and hopefully you all support that going forward. And then the last thing, this is just my own little personal thing. Don't give up on any of us, any of the community, the board as a whole, the organization as a whole. Yes, the last week has been a complete clusterfuck. We all know it. I think everybody probably regrets all the decisions that were made. I don't speak for everybody else, but I think so. Don't give up on any of that. Everybody up here, and somebody pointed it out a minute ago, busts their ass year-round. It's all volunteer. We have people who put their careers on hold, who give up every bit of personal time. And there's more of you guys out there than us that do that as well. Don't give up just because of the drama. Keep on moving this organization forward, keep moving the community forward, and let's make it all.
My first last comment is bars down. Hell yes. My second last comment is I'm not going anywhere, you guys. I'm not going to be on the board anymore, but I've been involved in this for 7 years. I will never walk away from this organization, especially while it's in trouble. I'm going to be here to guide, to do whatever has to happen. I'll answer all of your questions. I'm an open book. If anybody has any questions about me or any involvement I've had in any of this, come talk to me. Don't just buy into bullshit. Come talk to me if you have a personal question, because I'm here and I'm not leaving. I want to still run Alchemy. I hope that I'm given the opportunity to do that. That's the only involvement I want to have outside of an advisory position. Now, with all of that said, I'm going to be around a little while tonight. I'm going to have my cool green book with me. If anybody cares about Alchemy financials, come talk to me about them. Other than that, I'll have you an event report, and I'll see you guys around.
One last item, one of the most important online questions that we didn't get to was, how does narwhal bacon?
The narwhal bacon's at midnight.
And there you have it.
Okay,
Somebody take it away.
I have a microphone if you're all through.